everybody. Welcome to Childless. I am Dr. Becky Roberts. I'm a professor of communication, doctor of education, and on my channel here, I talk about transformations. And I've spent a lot of time talking about the physical transformation that I've been through in the last few years. And I want to do this series now on midlife transformation. And I want to start specifically with what I've been going through the last couple of years, and this has been the menopause transition. And the hallmark, I would say for probably most women, of the menopause transition is the fact that we can no longer physically bear children. And in my case, I never had children, and it wasn't something that I set out for. I always thought that I would have children. I always thought I'd have one or two. But there have been a variety of things that have happened over the course of my life that, have just, just kind of put me in a situation where I just never had children of my own. And looking back now, do I regret not having children? I have no regrets at all, because my life has been so full in so many ways. And I am a nurturer by nature. The difference is that nurturing instinct that I have didn't go toward my own children, but it has gone towards several of the seniors in my life, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, my grandmother. It has gone toward a lot of the students who have come in and out of my classroom over the last 30 years. It's gone toward my niece and my nephew and my godchildren. And so anyway, I want to talk today by starting out with telling you just a little bit about my own story. And I think a lot of you are going to be able to relate to this. And then just a few things that I want to point out about the current ongoing conversation that we're having nationally about people not having children. So anyway, I'm going to start with my own story. So I grew up in a big German Lutheran farm family. So I'm the oldest of 4 daughters. My dad is the 11th of 12 kids. So I've always had this huge network of cousins, and family's always been very important to me. And, I always thought that I was going to have, a one or two of my own. As I went through my formative years and then went through college and everything, I dated, and I met some very nice guys along the way, and had, in particular, one longer relationship that lasted about 8.5 years, and, good guys. But I always had to pump the brakes a little bit, because even though they were good guys and they were fine to date, there is a big difference between dating someone and committing to someone for the long haul and saying, yes, this is somebody I want to raise children with. This is somebody that if something, God forbid, happens to me, I can trust this man to take care of my children in the way that I want them taken care of. And I never met that man until I was 37, and that was when I met my husband. I met him when I was 37. I married him at 39. So before I met my husband, I did look into adoption for a while. So after I got my tenure track job here in Southern Michigan, I met with a couple different adoption agencies. I met with the state of Michigan, looking at adopting through the foster care system. So I definitely looked into that. However, I did not follow through, and there were a couple of reasons for that. The first one being, and I would say this was probably the number one reason, I did not have any family infrastructure here in Michigan. My entire family is in southern Wisconsin. And so I would have been here by myself. I would have had nobody to call if the child was sick and I had to go to work and they couldn't go to daycare. I didn't have family that I could fall back on for that. I didn't have family who I could call and say, hey, well, you run to the grocery store and pick these things up for me so I don't have to go out at, 11 o'clock at night and do it. And you got to remember, this was before DoorDash, right? So, we didn't have, those types of things. But also, I wanted my child, I would have wanted my child to be able to grow up with cousins and grandparents and all of those things that being over here where my job was, and a very good paying job with good benefits, far better than I could have found in southern Wisconsin, at least at that time. So that was, that was definitely a factor. The other thing was very much financial. It's not just the cost of the adoption. It's childcare, it's rent, it's school fees, it's all of the. And that was just going to be an awful lot for me because coming out of school, I had all my monthly expenses, plus I had my student loan debt. So there were a lot of factors that played into that. And I just did not feel that it would be responsible of me to bring a child into my life that I could not financially care for. And, I think there are a lot of people who do exceptionally well as single parents, and God bless them. I have the utmost respect for single parents. But I could say for an absolute fact that that was just not going to be me, that I think my bandwidth would have been quite limited at some point. And it would not have been fair to my child had I tried to pursue that. Few other things that I think definitely factor into this for me. I am very much a nurturer by nature. And anybody who knows me knows that I very much have a soft side. I'm very nurturing, very naturally. I think there's this knee-jerk reaction that because I'm a woman, that nurturing side gets to be directed at children. For me, okay, so I'll say my niece and my nephew are the absolute loves of my life. I have 4 godchildren. I have been able to do things for them that their parents couldn't do. And it was because I had the extra time and the extra financial resources to be able to provide some of those things that their parents couldn't. So there's that. Also, in terms of my career as an educator, I'm not wired towards small children. So I honestly, babies, toddlers, kids under 10, that's a lot for me. I am not wired towards small children. However, you give me an entire auditorium full of snarky, ticked off 19-year-olds, easy. I got them. So upper teens, lower 20s, I am really, really good with that population. That is what my brain is wired toward. And I have been able to give so much time and resources away from the classroom to a lot of the young people who have, crossed my path over the years. And I've been able to do that because I didn't have the extensive family obligations that a lot of people do. Another way I have really tapped into my nurturing side, I am really good with seniors. I've taken care of my father-in-law and my brother-in-law the whole time they were in hospice for the last several months of their lives. I've taken care of my husband through his cancer. I have been able to do a lot of that kind of caregiving, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. I'm really happy that I have those skills. So anyway, so there's that. When I met my husband, and when I was, like I said, I was 37 when I met him. I was 39 when we got married. And it was one of those things where I had already started to have a lot of, symptoms of early menopause. And so, yeah, getting pregnant just, wasn't happening. We didn't try. I mean, we did, but it just didn't happen for me. And so, there are a lot of us who kind of fall into this category. But a few things that I want to point out in terms of the big national conversation. I think There are so many reasons as to why people don't have kids, and there are a lot of reasons as to why so many younger people are not having kids. A lot of those are financial. Kids are expensive. Daycare is expensive. Medical care is expensive. When I talk to my own students, there are a lot of them who say, yeah, I would love to be able to have my own family, but I just don't think I'm ever going to be able to because of finances. So that's a big concern for a lot of them. And I completely get that. I think also there are a lot of women who would love nothing more than to have a child who can't for medical reasons. Infertility is a thing, and I personally know a couple of women who fall into this category, and my heart goes out to them because I know how much they want to have a child. And I know what an amazing mother they would be. And I know their partners are great guys. I mean, they would be absolutely fantastic parents, but it's just not happening for them. So I think people need to be really, really sensitive when you ask somebody, why don't you have kids? Or are you planning on having kids? You don't know what they have been through, and you don't know what their medical circumstances are. So please be really, really sensitive with that one. I think also on a national level, we need to be so, so cautious about challenging people's decisions. There are so many reasons as to why people may not want to have kids. And I think we have a whole lot of people out there, and all you have to do is look at our foster care systems. There are a lot of people who, have had these children that they can't take care of for whatever reason. Adoption is a wonderful, wonderful choice, and I would encourage anybody to pursue that if, in fact, you want to have a family and biologically it's just not an issue for you, or just something that you just can't do for whatever reason. Adoption is a great choice. So with that, my legacy is not going to be children. My legacy is going to be something else. And so there are an awful lot of us who fall into this category. So I'm curious, comments, constructive, please. And I think we can have a really good conversation about this ongoing. So this one was about the transformation of menopause and no longer being able to have children. So I've got a couple others that are in the pipeline that you're going to be seeing over the next couple of weeks. So please subscribe, share this video, like this video. It really helps me with that algorithm thing. All right. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me.